So, hi everyone, welcome back to WoSo Collective. This is Kudzi. I'm joined by André once again to discuss Euro 2022. We're going to take a quick recap of the two semifinals, so England versus Sweden, and then Germany versus France, and then we'll also discuss the final, which is tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, and who we think is going to win. It's being held at Wembley, and it's from what I understand, it's sold out, so it should be a really, really good game.
Love that.
Yeah. So, Andre, do you want to kick us off with the first semifinal?
Yeah. So it was England versus Sweden, as you said, and wow. Final score 4-0, but it still doesn't feel like a 4-0 game, but it ended 4-0. The goals were the first goal was scored by Beth Mead, and Lucy Bronze got a goal. Russo had that ridiculous back heel. And then Fran Kirby abused her old teammate Hedvig Lindahl with a nasty little chip that she got her palms to, but couldn't keep it from spinning into the net after a little bounce.
Yeah,
And it was 4-0, and that was it. First of all, how shocked are you, given I would say the first like half hour of the match? How shocked were you that England took over and then took over in such a dominant way where they scored three more goals?
really shocked. Really, like it kind of blew my mind how Sweden collapsed in the second half.
Yeah.
Of all the teams you could pick to say, okay, should something go wrong, this is a team that's going to go into meltdown. Sweden would be like at the bottom of your list. That's not
Yes.
them. Like people can say, oh, maybe the Sweden of old wouldn't have collapsed, but like when you look at the roster, at the team, at the people who were on the field during that time, you would not expect a meltdown like that. It was I don't know how even to describe it, except like sometimes in football you get that kind of like momentum swing, right? And sometimes what will happen is that if you capitalize during that momentum swing, you could score a bunch of goals, right? And then
Yeah.
it'll make it seem like the game was this hugely dominated game when it wasn't. It's just that one team had the momentum and they were like, okay, we're going to do as much as we can in this momentum to score as many goals as we can. And then that way, the other team, no matter what happens, can't come back. And I think that's kind of what happened between England and Sweden. Like even defensively, I remember I watched back the goals, and you could say apart from like Russo's, right, which was just pure individual talent. Excuse me,
Bonkersness.
sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, pure individual talent, like the spin, the back, everything. Like we'll talk about that goal, but apart from that, it was all defensive breakdowns. All the other goals were defensive breakdowns, and then you talked about how Kirby chipped Lindahl, and that was just like I don't want to say it, but it was bad goalkeeping. It was really bad goalkeeping because she
Yeah.
should have saved that. And yes, okay, let's say she had saved that one, it was still would have been 3-0 England, which I don't know, man. It's I was shocked. I was shocked at how badly just Sweden just kind of went off a cliff after that first goal.
Yeah, I think that was kind of my reaction too, because in the first 20 minutes specifically,
Hmm.
Sweden's game plan was working quite well. They were
Yeah.
not letting Kara Walsh dominate the game. They were finding a ton of space behind Lucy Bronze. I saw there was one time when Rolfo just came and she took the ball and took off the other direction. And you're just thinking like England cannot keep this up. If they give up that space, it is going to be a problem versus Sweden. And I also thought it was interesting though, even though Lucy Bronze was given a lot of that space, I still think Sweden probably a little upset themselves for not attacking the other side. We know that
Hmm.
1v1 Rachel Daly can be she's athletic enough to stay in front, but she can also be turned around. And we saw
Hmm.
that by Athenia in Spain. We don't want to keep bringing that up, but it was such a dominant performance because Rachel Daly is not really a fullback. But I thought that you had an opportunity, you had space on one side and not a defender defending on the other side. And I thought that, utilizing both of those wide areas the way that Sweden was, at least initially, if they would have done that a little bit more in a balanced way, they probably could have gotten on the score sheet first. So I was a little surprised. And then, of course, man, whatever Serena Wigman did to Beth Mead, whatever she told her, it is like she has so much confidence because her goal was, I mean, if Russo doesn't score that back heel, I think this is the goal we're
Yeah.
talking about for this
Yeah.
game because it was two really good touches and bang bang touches. Like those are the things you only see from a player when they're really informed and fully confident because that
Yeah.
touch and that turn and strike was just pure wickedness. And I love the angle from inside the goal because you could see the whole thing crafted and nobody had any time to react. Like Bethany knew what she was going to do. and
Yeah.
nobody else did. It was awesome.
And I think I also wanted, not just in terms of giving Beth Mead confidence, right? But I think the other thing that Serena Wigman did was she did two things actually that I'm surprised that Gerhardsen, Peter Gerhardsen didn't, react to. Like he didn't make the specific changes to react to that. He just left it alone. But the first change that what she did was, and I remember, I can't remember the timing of it when she made that change, but maybe later on in the second half, like late first half, sorry, going into the second half, once they realized that Sweden were targeting Walsh and closing her down, they kind
Hmm.
of shifted Georgia Stanway sort of to like the right wing, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. Not like up top, but like right outside flank, sort of in the midfield.
Hmm.
So what it did was that it spread Sweden's midfield, and because they were all, they were all assigned to be like, okay, like for example, Sani, you stick with Walsh. You make sure she doesn't go around, just like they did with the U.S. in the Olympics, right? Asani
Yeah.
was assigned to Iran, and she was told, you stick with her no matter what. And then Georgia Stanway, I think it was Bjorn who was supposed to be marking her. I can't remember specifically. I think it was because Angedan
Hmm.
was on the other side. So Bjorn's job was just to make sure she stuck with Stanway in the middle. But when Stanway started to drift right, or in this case, Sweden's left, it stretched Bjorn instead of staying in the middle like she's supposed to, she stretched out wide because she was following Stanway. And then it left gaps in the midfield for Mead or Bronze or Ellen White to kind of step into and then drag Sweden's back line, right? So that was the first thing that I noticed. And they didn't adjust for it. I don't know why Sweden didn't adjust for it, but they just didn't. The second thing was when in the second half when Bethany started to really go at Hannah Glass, he should have made the switch then to switch it to right back and then brought, we don't like it, but he should have brought Eriksson out wide.
Yeah.
He should
Yeah.
have done that because Mead realized that Hannah Glass is okay. Everyone knows she's right footed, and she's so right footed she can't really shift her weight to the left.
Hmm.
So Mead realized I'm right footed. She can't switch to her left quick enough. I'm just gonna go at her because I cut inside. I'm on my weaker foot. Doesn't really work. But if I go outside and then in, she can't keep up with me. And that was I think it was the two tactical things that Serena did that Peter Gadsden just did not react to. It was very strange watching it because I'm like, I can clearly see in the first half, I think Beth Mead went at Glass maybe once or twice or something. And I was like, that's going to be a problem if England notice that and say, okay, you know what, keep doing it. That's going to be a problem for Sweden if they don't address it. And they just never did. So I want to give Serena, first of all, credit for those two tactical changes because it switched the game for them. And then secondly, just wonder why Peter Gerhardsen didn't make the appropriate adjustments to counter that. And not just that, like you were talking about how they didn't really go after Daly. That was something else that he could have to address the balance of them suddenly overloading, sorry, the right side, right, or
Hmm.
the left side for Sweden. If he had given someone the opportunity or the tactical change to say, right, just keep going at Daly. We're going to switch the ball over to our right hand side, wherever
Hmm.
the winger is, whether it's Jakobsen or whoever it was. We're going to swing the ball out to the right, and we're going to tell them go after Daly. England would have had to switch now, move everyone over to the left to protect Daly,
Yeah.
but that didn't happen, and it was a strange game because you're like, I can clearly see the tactical issues with Sweden, but they're not being addressed. And if there's one thing you could say about Sweden is that lacking in tactical nuance or anything like that is not something that they lack. They're always pretty good tactically.
Yeah.
But on what was it, Tuesday? Yeah. On Tuesday, they just, for whatever reason, did not react and just stayed in the same stagnant formation.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point about, Hannah Glass. We know how good she is as a fullback, but I do think that sometimes people think that you can swap right to left and it's not a problem. And even though a player may be comfortable striking the ball or passing the ball with their left foot, it's different when you're having to change directions and switch your plant foot and switch your hips to go in a different direction. Some players can do that pretty well and some can't. It's quite difficult. And I think that's a really good point that you mentioned with Glass is that it is even though she's a very, very good fullback, it is a different thing when you suddenly have to react to somebody dribbling at you and you have to switch and be confident in your footwork going an opposite direction than what your body is naturally used to. So I do think that's a very good point. And yeah, I mean, you know, I agree. I think it was very strange that Sweden didn't adjust. I think they did try some little things, but it was a little bit, none of it really worked. And I think part of that was kind of what we said before, is that even though this game ended 4-0, even if it would have ended 3-0, it didn't seem like it was that dominant of a performance from England. I think if this game was at a neutral site, it wouldn't have been like this. You know what I mean? I really, I'm, I am. I think sometimes you can get into a situation where a home crowd and the expectations of a good team at home can be too much. But then I think on the flip side, sometimes you can have it where an exciting team, a team that's scoring a lot of goals, playing free flowing, the crowd just gives you a different kind of energy. And I think once Beth Mead scored that goal, it was like, okay, like we're because England looked shook in the first half. Like the
Yeah.
first half hour, they looked shook. They were getting ran over. They didn't look like they were struggling to figure out how to cope with what Sweden was doing. They weren't, Serena, for all the good changes that you mentioned, and she did eventually adjust, but she didn't adjust to like Lucy Bronze, keep her back a little bit. They're getting a lot of space over there. You might want to do something about that. So there weren't any adjustments, and honestly, they could have been down what in like the first minute.
Hmm.
Blackstenius had a great
Yeah.
shot, a great
Yeah.
chance in the first minute. So like it was a wild game because it was like all of a sudden once Sweden couldn't score, it was just like, okay, Beth Mead gets a goal out of nowhere, and then everything changes, and
Yeah.
Sweden never is able to catch back up. And I think a big part of not being able to catch up was one, like you said, the tactical adjustments that didn't come, but then also just England went into a different gear. Being at home, scoring a bunch of goals, getting the first and then getting the second. Russo's third was just like icing on the cake. It just sent everybody mad and going crazy. And it's just like Sweden at that point was probably just like, get us out of here. And I don't
Yeah.
blame them.
Yeah. No, you were right. It's interesting because it's not the first time that we've seen England in the first half
Yeah.
not be able to cope with a team, right? Spain did it
Yep.
and had, you know, a smarter tactical decisions being made in the second half for Spain. Who knows what could have happened? Same
Yeah.
thing here with Sweden. If they had scored, they had more than one chance in that first half to
Yeah.
like
Oh,
really
yeah.
kill the game in like the first 30 minutes. They could have
Yep.
scored two or three, and that would have
Yep.
been it.
Yep.
Even if England came back and scored one goal, Sweden weren't going to be letting them score three or four if they had already scored their own two, three, four
Yeah.
goals. But yeah, so it's interesting because, and we'll touch upon it, in the, we'll talk more about it in the final. But it's something to note if you're German, right? Something to note to say, there's something there that we can exploit in the first
I
half.
was going to say we will get there because
Yeah,
this is such a fun matchup.
yeah. All right, so we might as well just switch right to the second semifinal since we're talking
Yes,
about
let's do
Germany.
that.
So Germany beat France by two
Yes.
goals to one. Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to explain this game. It didn't have as many goals as England versus Sweden, but genuinely, I had more fun watching this game than I did England versus Sweden. And that was just because both teams didn't like sit back a bunk or whatever, or try to do like very tactical. We're gonna try and be defensive but still attack on the counter kind of thing. No, 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 no. Both teams are like, we believe in our firepower. We
Yeah.
believe in our tactics. We believe in our backline, our midfield, our attackers. We're just gonna go at it. And then
Yeah.
whoever scores more goals wins.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's an excellent point because like this is the quality of football we have seen through honestly throughout the tournament, but
Yeah.
particularly quarterfinal and the final and the semifinals has been wild. This game started off and it's like you're like holding on to something because this thing like they were going end to end. It was high energy. Everybody was like playing really, really well. There wasn't, of course, both defenses were under a lot of pressure
Yeah.
because of the attacking talent in both sides. But I mean, it was a high intensity, high quality game, and it was just really, really fun to watch. So in terms of like the England game left me like, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
This was more like this was fun.
Yeah.
And I think this game could have gone either way.
Oh yeah.
The difference is, Pop scores in the 40th minute, scores again in the 76th. There was what was technically called an own goal by
We should
Germany keeper
honestly that
France.
I don't like that rule. I don't
I
like
hate
that
it.
rule because it wasn't an obvious like, oh, if like she palmed it into the back of the net kind of thing. Like
Right.
it literally hit the post and didn't even travel that far before hitting her on the back and then in. Like the shot should get more credit than it hitting the back of the goalkeeper, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean that shot was taken by Diani, who's
Mm.
just been excellent all tournament. I think Aslani, Oberdorf, of course, Alex Pop has been great, but then also Diani. I think those are like the four real standout players for me in the tournament because Diani is just impossible to mark. she gets on the ball and she can go right foot, left foot, shift her weight either way. She has all the turns, all the skill to be able to evade defenders, move the ball away from them, and she's quicker than they are as well. She's just so good, and it's really fun to watch. But yeah, she took that shot. It almost was like she was playing her role up until that point, right? Wide creator, work the ball through midfield. We get the ball to your feet, you progress, you get around that press because it's another thing Germany's very good at. They attack, they hunt on the player with the ball, and they weren't really able to close down Diani because she was just like, okay, cool, run at me, I got it. Like I got the skill to get by you, and for goal, she was just like, you know what, I'm doing it myself. Gets the ball, cuts inside and just rips a shot. I was like the sound. I want everybody to go back and watch
Just
that
listen
and
to the
listen
sound of
to
the
it. Yeah,
like
the
the
sound of the
bang on the
ball
post.
popping
Yeah,
off the post was like that. That to me is why she gets full credit because that was the the keeper was just in the way
yes.
as she should have been, like trying to
Trying to stop a
save that
goal.
shot, but
Yeah,
nowhere close to it. And it was such a powerful and good and great shot. So yeah, I think she should get a lot more credit than the stats I suppose will give her. But she's been excellent all tournament. But yeah,
yeah,
this again, France. It was the story we expected, right? I mean,
yeah.
that was it. We mentioned not only the roster selection, which Henri would have probably came in handy in this match, but also some of the tactics toward the end that really kind of shifted and gave Germany the basically the go ahead to attack and score the goal because whatever Diacre did did not work.
I mean, let's let's delve into that a little bit because
Yeah,
let's talk about those tactical changes, right? So the first change was to take out Malad, put Diani as the 9, and then put Basha out on the left, and then
I
switch
hated that so
Castagne.
much.
And I was like, okay, I get bringing on Basha,
Yeah.
but Diani as the 9 is driving me crazy
Yes.
because why would you remove a person who's giving you great output from the right and then move
Yes.
them to the middle? Now, she
Yes.
scored from that position, yes, but it
Hmm.
was like one of those situations where she's like, I'm just going to create it by myself. It wasn't like a fluid, cohesive movement that led her to scoring that goal. She literally bodied her defender, turned and said, I'm going to shoot myself and I'm going to try and score.
And she
And that's
scored
not
that
what
goal
you want.
before all the changes too. So it's not like the change put her in position to score that goal. She was already reading the game and reacting to what they were giving her and got herself in that position. The change didn't allow her to do that, to be able to have that freedom anymore. It planted her in a central area, which is not where you ever want Diani. She's too good at being able to float or create wide. I was so upset at that move. I probably saw it coming, but it was like, are you serious? You're gonna do
Yeah,
this right
and you know
now?
what makes it worse? Halfway through the second half, she makes the switch again, brings her back to
Yeah.
the right, and brings who she bring on? Not Mateo, Sar. She brought on
Yep.
Sar.
Hmm.
And I'm like, so you recognize it was the wrong move, but you did it anyways. You did it anyways. And now
Yeah.
you've lost the game. So
Yeah.
now what?
Yep.
And another thing that she did was that midfield was just terrible.
Yep.
If she wanted to make a change, the first change she made was that midfield. Now, am
Hmm.
I saying that if Mateo had come on earlier and they had reconfigured that midfield, would they have won the game and therefore justified Diacre's, not bringing Henri, or let's talk about it, like Somer, because she was missing a striker?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that at all. But what it would have done is given their midfield a bit more time on the ball.
Yes.
And you saw when Mateo came on, she was influencing the game in a big way.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking, okay, so let's say you kept Malad on, brought on Mateo for maybe not for
Cascarino.
Bilbao. No, not for one of the midfielders, not Bilbao, I think, because you needed to keep the defensive midfielder there. I would say, okay, maybe bring on for Teletti. Let's
Okay.
just say,
Oh, you were saying what she should have done. I was like,
yeah,
okay, I
yeah.
was looking at what she did, but yeah, let's
No,
talk about what she should have
yes.
done.
So if she had brought on Mateo for Teletti because they needed
Yeah.
someone to carry the ball from midfield,
Yes.
like Euro can do that, but in her position with France, that's not her job. Her job is
Yeah.
to bomb forward and be the late runner into the box,
Right.
right? And if they had given someone to link midfield to attack, so like for example, with when Malad does play up top for Lyon, for example, you always have someone right behind, whether it's Maro, whether it's
Hmm.
Caterina Macario. It's always there's always a player right behind her. right, to help her with, because she's not a natural striker. She's not able to hold up defenders and all that kind of stuff. She's not a natural striker. She's a wide player, right? But if you put someone right behind her, she's more effective. And in this case, they didn't have anyone right behind her because the midfield was too far back.
Yeah.
So anytime, even if she had the ball, and same thing with Diani. Diani's a bigger physical presence, right? So she was able to hold up her marker. But the problem was everyone else was so far away from her that when the ball came to her, there was one German behind her, one German in front of her, and the ball wouldn't stay up front.
Yeah.
So the ball kept coming back in the second half. It kept coming back to France, kept coming back because they weren't able to keep it up top. So if they had put Matteo in for Toletti, that way give a link between midfield and the forward. Then they have a better chance of, if the ball comes to Diani, still at the top because Diakre is Diakre, but if the ball comes to Diani, she traps the ball. She has an outlet so that before Germany, because Germany were pressing so hard, so before Germany could press on her, she has an outlet right there. She can just pass the ball off, make a spin, run behind, and she's in. But that wasn't the change. The change was Millard out, Diani up top, Bashan on the left. And then when she realized, oh, whoops, that's not working, back down into the right, off Cascarino goes, and I'm going to put Sar at the top.
Yeah.
And Sar, I'm not saying she's a terrible player, but she's not good enough to stop for France. That's just fact. That's just fact. So
I agree. The only thing I'll say, but this is the frustration. Like, I think Sar probably never envisioned that she would be in the position because Katoto was supposed to be there, and if you needed a backup, you could always put Millard there. The fact that it had to be Millard, and then she basically was bumped up in the chart, that's what ended up happening, and it wasn't great. But this is where again, roster construction, right? Who are the players who you might need to call on and have as part of your team so you can go to them. Les Amer definitely, but Henri, I'm never going to shut up about that. Amandine Henri would have been so much better to have. You had the spaces and ability to put her in there. Another thing she didn't do is turn to somebody like Sandy Baltimore as well. You had her on the bench. You could have used her in a number of different ways. But I mean, for me, it's that midfield problem. Like you said, it's very difficult for France's midfield to keep the ball, to hold the ball, and to actually distribute the ball forward. And those are things that Henri excels at. And I think you put her in that midfield, it alleviates a lot of pressure on some of the others who might be less experienced or not as capable or good as Henri is. And it allows them to play their more natural game because they don't have to worry about that. And so I think that it's frustrating when you see a situation, I've been saying it all tournament, there's going to come a game when you're going to look at it and you're going to say, I wish Amandine Henri was there. Yeah. I think what was it in the quarterfinal? There's a shot that I can't remember who missed it. It may have been Bilbao, but I was like, Henri scores that. Yeah. It was one of those where the ball was just in space, ricocheted and was rolling into space at the top of the box. She put her foot through it, but I think sliced it wide, and Henri pounces on that and scores. But yeah, it's not even, I think you look at the Women's Champions League final and you see what Amandine Henri did. And of course, the highlight is that goal that she scored, which is ridiculous. But seconds before that goal, what set it up was a crazy tackle. She tackled the ball, got up, kept possession, dribbled, and then took a wicked shot. But I think even beyond that, the performance was so excellent even without the goal because of what she did to shut down Barcelona's midfield. Her movement defensively, her understanding of the game, her ability to make these passes that were basically frustrating, allowing the defense and the rest of her midfielders to get up, the attackers to go and have the confidence to get forward. Sounds like something you could have used, right? You know what I mean? That was always going to be the case when you have a player of that caliber to not. And again, in case people don't know, it very much seems like, and I don't know if Diacre has said this verbatim, but the prevailing thought is that after Henri criticized her tactics in the 2019 World Cup, there was a rift between the two, and that's the reason why Diacre didn't bring her. So
she wasn't the only one.
She was the only one to do it.
It was Henri. It was who you would expect. Who's not on the team?
Exactly.
Yeah. All the people who criticize it. The only one who managed to come back is Renard. And I'm curious about that because I think Diacre might not have had a choice but to bring back Renard.
I don't think she had a choice.
I think
that decision.
Otherwise, if she had had a choice who she felt, I'm going to play her instead, I think she would have left Renard out as well. But speaking of that, just to switch over to Germany very quickly. What I do want to say is we were talking about Diane's individual brilliance and how she had figured out what Germany were doing. Same can be said for Paul.
Yeah. Yep.
Alex Pop, like, man, she is having the tournament of her life. She's having a good time. You can tell she's having a good time. Did you see the press conference that she came out with the mustache?
Yeah, with the fake mustache. Yeah, that was
She's
excellent.
having a good time. She's having
Yeah.
a great time. Good for her. But like, I mean, if I was in a position, I'd be enjoying every second of this all.
Yeah.
But what I want to point out is that did you see, like, if you watch her movement for both
Hmm.
goals and even just throughout the game, she
Yeah.
never went to Renard's side.
Yep.
She never went
Yes.
to Renard's side. She realized that, listen, because, Renard was like brushing everyone aside, just like, yeah, none of you
Hmm.
are going to push me around. Nuh-uh, that's not happening today, Germany. Maybe with other teams you can do that, but not with me. Renard was not having it. But so she's like, okay, I could try and just do this 90 plus minute battle with Renard to prove
Hmm.
who's the bigger person or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Who's the big dog? And she's like, no, I'm not going to do all that. I'm just going to go on the other side because I know that the others can't handle me. So I'm just going to go there. And that's exactly what she did. For the first goal, I'm pretty sure she came in between Mbok and Perisic. Yes,
Yep.
she
She
did.
got right in front of Paris.
Right in front of Perisic. Yeah. So she literally was like, that's the channel I'm going to use from now on. And even on the second
Hmm.
goal, yes, there was more bodies there, but that was,
Yeah.
again, she came from that channel. And
I was gonna
when
say
she,
that particularly that second the header,
yeah,
if you watch her movement, she doesn't signal, she doesn't show to them that she's gonna attack it
yeah,
until really late. She
late,
goes
exactly.
so late and it was
And
an
they didn't
awesome
have time
piece of
to adjust. Yeah, they didn't have time
nope.
to adjust because, like, I would think that, Mbok, when you watch the second goal back, if Mbok had more time to figure out what was going on, she probably would have challenged better, and therefore
Yep.
not the header wouldn't have been as accurate.
Yep.
But she had no idea where Pop was, and she didn't
Yep.
know how quickly or how in what you were pointing out that she came late. She didn't
Hmm.
realize where Pop was and how late her run was going to be. And then, therefore, when the goal happened, she had no time to react. None.
Yep.
And there was also other bodies around her, so she was trying to pay attention to them,
Hmm.
and then hoping that the midfield and her right back Perisic would both be able to like figure out where Pop was, but no one did.
Yeah.
And then she just came in, scored that second goal, and it was game over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The I love you pointing that out. The whole work smarter, not harder thing has never been more clear than Pop in this game because she was like, why in the world am I gonna try and challenge 6'1", 6'2" Wendy Renard all game in the air? But that's like Renard, I heard a stat, it was on I think the Athletic podcast, where Wendy Renard and Stina Blackstenius have the most shots in the game in the tournament. I think they're tied with like 18. And it's just like she wins, and it's all from headers,
yeah,
from either crosses or corners. And it's like, why would you willingly set yourself up to say, okay, the winner of this game is going to be in the air, either me or Wendy Renard? Don't do that to yourself. Be smarter than that. And Pop was like, had too experienced, too good, and just knew like, and her understanding of like to know you can make that run late is really, really clever to me. She's like, normally, especially at the time in which he scored, I think it was
yeah,
what, the 76th minute? Like
yeah.
it
It was
was,
late in the second half.
yeah, it was a late going. I think you could
Yeah,
just feeling
76. Yeah,
a natural sense of urgency. You want to get in there and say, okay, I have to win this header. We need to win, we need a goal. But understanding, crafting the what would give her the highest chance of being able to win the ball and get direction on it was coming in late, and just knowing that instinctively is so cool. Like you are right. Like she has been so fun to watch, not only because like her story incredible. I mean, this is the first Euros. She's what? How old is she? She's 30.
30 something.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't remember if she's 31 or 33, and there's a whole
30
year in
something.
between that. So I'm
30
gonna look it
something.
up real
Yeah,
quick.
I know she's
She is
30 something.
31. Yeah,
There we go.
she turned 31 in April. She's missed every other Euros
Yeah,
because
through
of
injury.
injury, and it's just been like really terrible timing on her injuries for her to miss these big major tournaments. This is her first one at 31, given as good as she is.
Hmm.
And honestly, she would have missed this one too.
Had it
If
been
it was
last year,
played,
yeah,
yeah, had it
it
been
was
last year,
played
she
when it
would
was
have missed
supposed to
it
be.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like she is taking full, I mean, scored in every single game and scored two in the semifinal. I like that is it is such a cool story, and watching her classic center forward play has been so fun.
yeah. And we might as well just go right into the final now because
Oh, let's do
why not? So here's the thing. We all know it's England versus Germany playing at Wembley. Wembley is apparently sold out. People are desperately trying to get tickets. It's just not happening because
You
you're
see
not going to get a
some of
ticket.
the men's team players are
Yeah,
like,
they're
"Hey,
like,
can we
yeah,
get
hook us
tickets?" They're
up, hook
like,
us up.
"No."
Yeah, if I was I'd be like, unless you give me like $2 million, you ain't getting this ticket.
No, right?
Yeah, you ain't getting this ticket. Give me 2 million, and I'll consider it. But
Exactly.
yeah, like I think it's just gonna be a great game.
Yeah.
I still think Germany might do it. When we discussed it last time, I said whoever's gonna go up against Germany, I still think Germany are gonna win.
Mm.
Like listen, I'm not saying it's a guaranteed German win because there's a lot going for England at the moment. Home crowd
Yes.
advantage, momentum,
Hmm.
confidence, all those things. They've got also a very capable head coach who, if something is going wrong, she'll make the necessary adjustments.
Yep.
So I'm not saying it's an outright German. I just think, and maybe this is just me going back on past history, and this England team is going to be the one to change history or whatever, right? Which is very possible. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but Germany are very good at playing spoiler. They will show up in your backyard and be like, "Yeah, you guys
Yeah.
are having fun. We're not going to let you have fun for
Fun
too long."
time is over.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they did to the women's team what Italy did to the men's team. Y'all got to the final. Y'all feeling good. The men's team, they scored first too. On top of that, and
Yeah.
Italy was like, "Nope, nope, 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 nope. We're gonna take this to penalties, and we're gonna make sure you lose in the most heartbreaking way."
You know,
So, it, could I see that happening? Yes,
yeah.
100%. Like, I don't. To the point where do I think it's going to go to penalties? It could possibly be because these two teams are very, very good.
Yeah.
Could I see one team winning it in normal time? Yeah, 100%. I could see it. I'm
Yeah.
leaning more towards Germany, but this is by no way me saying it's 100% a German win. If anything, it's like 50.5% Germany, 49.5% England. Like that's for me. That's how I'm feeling. I'm very like either way. It really could.
Yeah. So I find this game so hard to predict because I think the problem is we have seen England start slow. We have
Yeah.
seen England come into like a big occasion and feel that pressure. Like eventually the crowd gets them into it and they fix, they do some tweaks and they get back to playing their game. But they started, as you mentioned, they started slow against Spain. They definitely started slow against Sweden. Sweden had a lot of opportunities. Germany, the only game that they haven't won a shot or gotten a goal from a high press was their game against France. And that was just because France was just like, there's actually one clip in there where Germany's like high press is kind of on. And I think it was Cascarino who just does this like fun little weird like foot flick thing.
Yeah,
Like she
I
kicks
remember.
across the ball,
Yeah,
but misses it on purpose and then swings her leg back and chips it out with the outside of her
and
foot.
then off she goes.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, you're not going to press a team that just has that kind of confidence and skill with the ball.
Yeah,
But I think that if England starts slow and Germany's high press is on, they can create really easy scoring opportunities for themselves because that is part of their game plan. It's part of their DNA. It's what they do.
yeah.
And if England starts slow, that's going to be a problem.
And
I also
unlike the
think
other previous two teams, Germany will actually score.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the other thing. Germany knows they know how to move the ball and take advantage of those opportunities. So I think that is very like to me that's the thing. If England manages to get to like the half hour mark or so with the goal with it still being 0-0, I think that the to me it switches over to being like okay, England has a very good shot, but they have to endure what I think Germany is going to try and do is pressure that back line. I think in the last game I think Millie Bright had the least number of, like the fewest number of passes in the game, and Leah Williamson had the most. I think they clearly are probably going to try and force Millie to be the one to pass out of the
Mm-hmm.
pass around away from the press opposed to Williamson. And we'll see how that goes. Millie's been excellent in the air and defensively, but facing a high press sometimes is a very different thing. If it requires a different reading of the game and different abilities to do that, and having to do it in high pressure moments is a different thing. So like I'm concerned for England there, but then you look at like when the match settles down and the two teams are
Yeah,
going back and forth at one another, it's hard to call. I
yeah.
think Pop has been incredible. I think Beth Mee's been incredible. I think eventually, we're gonna get the WoSo for Ellen White sub, and then England's gonna look better on it going forward. And I think WoSo has a good chance to score if she comes in like the at halftime or the 50th minute or something. So like if England cannot give up like a goal or two in the first 20, 30 minutes, we're going to have a hell of a final. If they can, it's going to be tough because Germany's going to say, okay, just like they did when they played, who did they do that to? I'm trying to remember who
When
Germany
they
did that to
when they what?
when they beat, who was it? It was Spain in the group stage.
Oh
When
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
scored
When
those
they
two goals, and then they just sat there and was like, "Okay, your turn. See if you can get through
see
us."
if you can
And,
get
and
us.
Spain
Yeah,
couldn't. So I think
yeah,
they might end up doing the same thing if they can get
yeah.
two early goals. We'll see.
That's what I was thinking as well. I was thinking one might not be enough for Germany. I think they'll have to score a couple.
Yeah.
If they are on top early, they're gonna have to score a couple of goals. And I think after that, it's gonna be very hard for England to come back. If Germany managed to put two or three in that first half, oof, it's gonna be hard for England. But just like you were saying, if England managed to hang on,
Yeah.
if they start like they were doing, start slow, and they manage to hang on until like halftime at 0-0,
Yeah.
then I will feel that England have a great chance to win.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of like wrapping it up, because we can try very, very quickly to wrap it up. I'm going to
Okay.
say the key to this game is going to be substitutions. I
Hmm.
think everyone's talking about Germany's high press and how tired they might be for the final, but you got to realize that there's been a lot of quality players that have been sitting on the bench
Yeah.
that actually haven't played all that much, that have fresh legs. So when Germany start to tire, they're going to bring on some very talented players to re-emphasize that press once again. And I think for England, like we talked about WoSo and Ellen White, that's a key sub that, if she starts White again, which we expect, WoSo is going to be the one to come on at the second half and just go at that German backline full of energy, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. We want to have a final word, André?
Yeah, I think the subs is a good one to call out. We know that Clara Bull will not. She's going to miss again, so it'll be Yul Braun going, and maybe Tavia Wasmuth, who, if as a Chelsea supporter, very good with the high press. So I know that from firsthand experience. So yeah, I think it's going to be excellent. I'm just hoping that we have a really good match. I hope it's close. I would love to see Germany score first because I would like to see England respond, and I would also like to see Russo in the match as early as possible.
All right.
That's all I got.
Okay, so that's perfect. Thank you, everyone. Once again, we'll try and do one more recording after the final just to wrap everything up. But otherwise, we are good for today. We try to keep it short this time around, so hopefully people appreciate that.
Nailed it.